What if I told you there is a town in America that vanished? Not by natural disaster, not by economic collapse, but because the US government demanded it disappear entirely. One day its people went to sleep in their homes, the next morning they were gone, told to leave forever. No disaster, no collapse, just an order, a secret mission, and wiped out memories. That town still lies buried today, hidden under water or sealed behind fences. Its streets, homes, schools once full of life, erased. In the next few minutes, you'll meet that town. You'll see how and why it vanished. You'll learn how ordinary people lost their homes to one of the most secret and consequential projects in American history. By the end, you may never look at a map the same way again. Let's go back to the early 1900s. On the banks of the Columbia River in Washington state, there stood a small community called Hanford, Washington. Settled in 1907, it was modest but real. Farms watered by irrigation, families working the land, a bank, a hotel, a school, a railroad spur. Life there had rhythm, comfort, hope. By the 1920s, Hanford had built a close-knit community with its own traditions, celebrations, and shared identity. The people there were proud of their town. In this valley along the Columbia, children went to school, neighbors helped neighbors, and life unfolded with the dependable cadences of small-town America. All that peace and all that normalcy faded in 1943, March 9th, 1943, overnight. The government condemned Hanford. Families got as little as 30 days to leave. No long fade-out, no gradual decline. One day you own a home, a farm, school, and community. A month later, you are told to pack up and leave. Why? Because this quiet slice of farmland was chosen for something unimaginably big, secret, and dangerous. The government needed land, lots of it, far from prying eyes, near water and power for a top-secret project. The result? Raising of homes, orchards, schools. The farmland became part of something else entirely. For villagers, the change was brutal. Many didn't just lose property. They lost their roots, their community, their memories, the place where children played, where neighbors met, where life felt safe. Some tried to hold on, but the fences went up, the gates locked, and their old lives became off-limits. What replaced Hanford was no ordinary town. It became part of the Manhattan Project, the secret initiative that would birth the first atomic weapons. The farmland, orchards, houses vanished under gravel and concrete, replaced by reactors, processing plants, military installations. The land was no longer home, it was a factory of history. Nearby, another town, White Bluffs, Washington, met the same fate. Residents there were given anywhere from a few days to a couple of months to leave. Homes, orchards, entire livelihoods evaporated overnight, burned or bulldozed to make space for plutonium production. Cemeteries were dug up and moved, families scattered, generations displaced. From forests and fields, the landscape shifted into desert industrial wasteland. The places once full of life now belong to secrecy, radiation, and history only whispered in declassified documents. Imagine watching your town being erased, your home condemned, your neighbors gone, your church, your community hall, your school, shuttered or destroyed. That was life for roughly 1,500 residents of Hanford and White Bluffs. Many felt pride for contributing. After all, we were helping win a war, some recalled later. But that pride didn't erase the loss. Families who owned orchards and farms were forced to abandon land cultivated for decades. Many were paid, but the compensation rarely matched the emotional cost. Others resettled in new, government-assigned houses in places like Richland, Washington, a new town built for workers of the Manhattan Project. Richland's rapid rise, from tiny community to a city of 25,000 by 1945, was built on that displacement. But for those who lost home, their old lives became memories. Even decades later, many former residents described an aching sense of loss. Annual reunions tried to keep memories alive. But a community scattered is hard to rebuild. This kind of forced vanishing was not unique. Another chilling example, St. Thomas, Nevada, a small town founded in 1865, once a stop on the old Arrowhead Trail. The town thrived, with hundreds of residents, farms, local commerce, normal life. But in the 1930s, as the U.S. federal government built Lake Mead, residents were bought out, evicted, told to leave. The rising waters submerged the town. By 1938, the town was underwater, 60 feet below the lake's surface. Its church, school, and houses gone beneath the waterline. Some stories say the last man paddled away as water lapped at his doorstep. Decades later, due to drought and falling water levels, the ruins emerged again. Foundations, old streets, ghostly outlines of a town come back to the surface, a submerged memory rising out of the water. St. Thomas stands as a haunting example. A town erased not by collapse or neglect, but by government plan and the thirst for power over land and water. Why did the government treat these towns as expendable? In Hanford's case, war. In Lake Mead's case, water and energy supply, the promise of modern infrastructure. In both cases, the needs of a nation trumped the lives of small communities. In 1943, Hanford was nearly wiped from maps. Officials prioritized secrecy, strategic advantage, and the logistics of mass production over people's homes. Public safety, yes, but only after homes and memories were bulldozed. In Nevada, St. Thomas gave way to a giant reservoir. The land under it became a resource, not a community. And once the water came, there was no going back. Families relocated, lives uprooted. Governments said it was for the greater good. People called it loss. Yet for decades, few outside knew. These vanished towns became footnotes, if they appeared at all. Much of what happened in places like Hanford remained secret for years. The work happening inside those fenced zones helped end a war, but also began a nuclear age that changed global politics, environmental safety, and human lives. The emotional cost of homes, heritage, identity rarely shows up in history books. But it lived in the people who lost everything overnight. Memories, belonging, community vanished. In White Bluffs, orchards were cut down, cemeteries moved, farms destroyed. Generations of heritage erased in weeks. It's a stark reminder. When governments demand something, lives can vanish as collateral. Today, you can still see traces of what once was. In the fenced-off desert of the Hanford site, a few old structures survive. The high school building, a few barns, irrigation ditches, remnants of foundations. In the case of St. Thomas, when water levels fall, ghostly outlines of foundations and town streets emerge on the dry lake bed, evidence of an entire town once alive. For history explorers, photographers, and the curious, these places are more than just ruins. They are silent storytellers. They are warnings. They are proof that sometimes history isn't lost in wars or disaster, but in decisions made behind closed doors. This is not just a ghost town story. It is a story about power, about government decisions, and about how entire communities can be erased overnight. It is a caution. When national interest overrides individual lives, what gets destroyed may never come back. These stories challenge the comfortable narrative of progress. They force us to ask, who pays for so-called national projects? What is the price of security, energy, or war? And how do we remember the people who vanished so the rest of us could move forward? These are not abstract questions. The people displaced from Hanford or drowned out by Lake Mead were real. Their lives mattered. Their stories deserve to be told. So what will you do with this history? Maybe you'll look at a map differently. Maybe you'll think twice when you hear about government land acquisition, nuclear sites, or big water projects. Maybe you'll remember that behind every empty field or fenced-off zone, there might once have been homes, children, memories. And if you ever travel near the Hanford site or near Lake Mead, and you stumble across a dusty road, an old foundation, or a memory hanging in the wind, pause, respect it. Because something once lived there, real lives, real loss, real history. If this story unsettled you, good. If it made you wonder what else has been erased, even better. Share this video, talk about it. Remember those lost towns. Because history is not only what we build, but what we erase. If you want more stories like this, Places wiped by rivers, dams, war, or secrecy. Let me know in the comments below. I'll dig into the archives. Until then, stay sharp.